Hello, everyone. Thank you for making it out to today's event. This evening, we have the pleasure of hearing from Byron Walker, who helped find Strofe. Strofe, for those who may not know, is an AI that allows anyone to create music within seconds. Byron is a lifelong music teacher who also studied music, science, and technology at Stanford's Center for Community Research in Music and Acoustics. So without further ado, the man of the hour. How are you doing, Byron?
Pretty good. Pretty good. Yeah. Just really busy these days, but yeah, no, Strofe stuff's going well. Just got back from a hike.
Oh, that's
Excited for the
nice.
interview. Yeah.
So, how's Strofe going for you? Any new
Um.
updates?
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, it's been going well. A bit, kind of like a quick history for those who haven't heard of us or who don't know. We launched the website almost a year ago to the day. Um, and yeah, some of the Roblox was one of the first places we reached out to because we saw that music copyright is a problem that content creators struggle with all over the place, and game developers in particular have a pretty rough time with it. Um, and there are a lot of game developers on Roblox's platform. Um, yeah, so we like launched there. We like put up some posts on Reddit, and like somewhat miraculously over the last year, managed to gather like 100,000 people who've used Strofe so far. I think it's almost 110 now, um, and yeah, so that's super exciting. You know, like a lot of the kind of feedback we've been getting is like largely positive. I think like the idea that you could like make your own song and like own it is a fairly new thing, for non-musicians at least. Like not everybody's like you can't get out there and like write your own, you know. Um, but yeah. So that's been really exciting. It sort of put us at this stage of things in the startup life cycle where we're looking at like a seed round, which is sort of like our first like major form of like institutional fundraising. We're like just it's the basic gist is like we're sort of trying to talk to potential investors, see who sort of is even interested in this sort of thing, because like at the end of the day, it's not just about like finding somebody who's willing to like give you money to grow the company, but also like ideally partners who like really understand sort of the potential or like a lot of the problems you might run into before you run into them, you know. But yeah, so in that sense, it's going great. We've learned a lot, but yeah, we're trying to grow quickly.
Mhm. I know that when you first started out Strofe, though, everything was 100% completely free.
Mm-hmm.
They started to add in the Strofe coins and then start to have people have to pay to generate their own music.
That's
Do you
right.
think do you think that that'll help with finding investors, finding that you have like some sort of income to the website?
Yeah, you know, I'm not sure like how much you've seen all of this, but like the world of tech is a bit on fire. Um, Netflix stock is worth like 70% of what it used to. Almost every tech stock is way down. Investing at sort of like the later stage, like think companies that are like 4, 5, 6 years out and later, is looking really rough because I guess people were pretty excited before, and um, the sort of value of these things really overinflated, and now it's sort of swinging the other way. And one of the things that people are looking for is like that the company actually provide. And this may sound somewhat ridiculous, but like people want to see that the company is like providing real value, and people really want it enough that they're even willing to pay a little bit, right?
Yeah.
And so, I mean, for us, given that everything's like software generated, it doesn't cost us too much to make a song, so we can sort of put our price point fairly low. You know, as much as I'd love to make it free forever, it's sort of um, like the company would die within
Yes.
years if we, you know. Um, but yeah, so in that sense, like it's somewhat fortuitous that we launched like that Strofe coin thing before a lot of this had happened, so that now that we're sort of talking to folks, we actually you know, we have a bunch of customers. We have a lot of people who are really digging it, and for whom that price point is, if anything, like I think we started almost too cheap. Because for a lot of folks, it's like really not much. But I think it's much better to have that be our start than the opposite, I guess, where we're sort of shutting a lot of people out with a prohibitively expensive product.
Mhm.
But it's tough, yeah, because it's like, how much are you willing to pay for a sandwich? Maybe anywhere between $5 to $10. Like, is a Strofe song less than that? Yeah, definitely. But are people? I don't know. The
You have to
calculus is
find that
different.
balance, find the
Exactly.
perfect balance.
Exactly. Yeah, and then I think part of it, like we launched a kind of like ambassador program, which is
Yeah.
for largely for Roblox developers.
Yes.
As somebody who like received a lot of financial assistance in my own life growing up, we wanted to provide some means for like Roblox devs or really anybody else who like really needed the music to be able to sort of reach out and be able to make songs for free again. Um,
I could
so
I think I could thank you for that ambassador program. It really helped me to get everything, like look at the whole website, see everything I could do before this.
oh, great.
It
Yeah.
truly helped. It saved me.
No worries. I'm glad you got a lot out of it. It's
Yeah.
yeah.
But speaking of copyright that you mentioned with first getting the website,
Hmm.
how do you think the audio update affected this with users not being able to like take publicly used audios from
Right.
others anymore?
So, I mean, on the one hand, it doesn't cost anything to upload audio, right?
Mhm.
I know there's a lot of like provisions that are like different for different developers. Like more established ones can upload a ton, less established ones upload less, and can earn the right to like upload more for free or what have you. Um, so actually, like on that side of things, it's great because like that was something we were fighting for very early on, because we were kind of like we're trying to like reach out to Roblox proper and say like, hey, like, is there anything we can do to sort of like upload Strofe songs for free? Because I know that like they have to check all the audio, and like we can guarantee like all of this stuff is like brand new music, you know. Um, and it was a bit tough to get a lot of traction there, and as I'd realized likely because they were sort of handling a lot of these like music copyright concerns on the back end.
Yes.
But yeah, I know a lot of people are really unhappy because like say you have like 10 games and 90% of the audio was like public audio, and now right like I don't know. I think like it's really unfortunate that that happened, but at the same time like I'm well I guess maybe I didn't read the posts, or at least I don't remember it so clearly, but like I imagine a lot of this is like the result of kind of the settlement with like the music industry, right?
Yeah. But do you think like Strofe helped bridge the gap in a way a little bit with people being able to get easily accessible music again?
Oh, of course. Yeah, because like at the end of the day now you have to like upload your own, right? And yeah, like if you go to Strofe you can make as many as you want.
Yes.
And yeah, we're kind of looking into how to make that even better for devs. So like before, like one of the updates that's going to be coming within the next ambiguous time frame is like uploading or going to Strofe and downloading like each individual section sort of like
Okay.
separately, so that you can get like loop, the transition part, the second loop, the next transition, and like the ending, you know what I mean, as like
Mhm.
separate sound files, such
Yeah.
that you can sort of easily upload them all and have that worked into the game. Whereas before we didn't necessarily want that, because like one full thing turning into three separate sound files means like triple the upload cost, right?
Yes. But I also know Strofe also offers out MIDI, which is really big on its own.
Yeah, no, we kind of realized that almost as a surprise, like as a side effect of sort of composing and producing all the songs from scratch. Like we have the MIDI file, and it sounds like you're likely aware of this. Like the MIDI pack market is like pretty garbage, or fairly predatory. It's like, hey, kid, like you want all of the major scales like as a purchasable MIDI FAQ. And actually, like, there's been a sizable amount of users who like come to Strofe and buy the songs because they don't know how to compose, but they want to get into music production. And we're
Yeah.
one of the few places you can like get a full song as a MIDI file.
I think at least 2 people released their own albums using just Strofe generated music.
Yeah,
Right.
no,
Did you
definitely.
think your Strofe would have that type of impact?
Um, I think so. The funny thing is we knew the short answer is like no, not really. Like we definitely knew that content creators needed this sort of thing. Um, but that was a bit surprising. But for me, it was like a really pleasant surprise because, like you'd mentioned, like I've taught music for a long time, and like the idea that there's like a kid out in the UK like who's using this to like learn music production and like actually get into it is really really cool to me, because like I love teaching like one-on-one, but like the idea that Strofe could be this way to sort of help a lot of people get into music is like mind blowing.
So, speaking of that on your teaching, what's your music background like? Like, do you play any instruments? Or,
Uh, I've been faking it this whole time. No, it's I started with
Fake
piano
it until
very
you make it.
yeah, that's right. Highly recommend it actually. Um, no, it'd be a bit tough to fake being a piano teacher. It's like, Byron, could you play this for me? I'm like, no, actually, I can't. No, so I played piano from a very, very early age. Mom got me started when I was 3. And I started teaching actually trombone at first when I was like 14. So I also play trombone. And
Yeah.
yeah, and it was a lot of like piano and trombone at first, but then as I got into college and I picked up singing and guitar and ukulele, I started to teach those as well. I did a bit of like music production, like lessons, actually learning how to use Logic, how to sort of produce a song, like the whole 9 yards. But I think like, yeah, so that's kind of my background on the teaching side, like, but I was also very into music theory and particularly like theory as a means of like analyzing music. Unfortunately, not as many people want to learn that, so I haven't had a lot of students in that regard. But yeah. Like,
Yeah,
I've
music there is definitely underappreciated.
well, I think part of it, and this has like led to my teaching philosophy, is like I feel like a lot of music education or the standard these days is like the same kind of like skill and drill that you get in like regular school, sort of memorize these facts, keep it in mind for the test, spit it out on the test, like forget all those facts so you can learn a bunch of other new facts, and then it's just sort of like running through the meat grinder. And it's a bit unfortunate when that's the standard of learning for like music, because it's such a like fun and human thing.
Yeah.
And a lot of my students, like by the time they get to me, I have to like start out by like almost doing a form of like music therapy, sort of reintroducing them to the idea like that it can be fun, and like learning how to like learn it and not feel bad about not practicing 1 week and showing up to lessons like it's like totally fine. You know what I mean? Like it's very unfortunate, but like it's somehow a very universal experience. Like if I even run to adults and I'm like, oh, you learned piano, like how was your teacher? And it's always just like, oh, like deeply traumatic. And we're like, haha, yeah, right. I was lucky. I had actually great teachers who were very
Yeah.
loving and helped me develop like a natural interest in music. And like
Yeah, I think
I
that
learned
depending on the teachers you have, it really like factors into how you appreciate music. Like if they're low energy, don't really want to be there, just getting by, then it's gonna really leave a negative effect on the student.
yeah, I think that's true of almost anything.
Yeah.
I kind of had that with history to a large degree. It was all about like memorizing dates and facts, and not so much about like using history as a means of like reflecting on the present day, or on finding like stories about the past that you can kind of like use to whatever. Um, but yeah, it's tough because everybody loves music, but a lot of
Yeah.
people get kind of pushed out of it, you know.
So let's do a little segue though. What does UGC music mean to you?
UGC music, like user
User
generated
generated content. Like, how
music.
important is it for people to be able to generate their own music, be able to share it with their friends?
Um, I mean, I think there's two reasons why it's important, right? There's the like I need it for a thing that I'm making. Like I've got YouTube videos, I've got a game. Like it's music with a purpose, and that's incredibly important, right? Like
Mhm.
you couldn't have if your game had no music. Like what are you doing? And yeah, so in that sense, I think like connecting people to something like Strofe is really important. And then I guess there's the other side, which is like music for music's sake, you know. And I think that's a bit of a deeper thing. Um, I think the best example of that is like, yeah, kind of like you're talking about with the MIDI files, like people come into Strofe, messing around with it, finding things they like, and like using that as like almost like a starting block for their creative process. And yeah, no, I think that's super cool. Sorry, I'm kind of losing track of the question.
That's alright. I was just
um,
saying how important like user generated content music is, like people making their own music,
yeah,
giving
yeah.
basically giving people the tools to do what they couldn't do before.
Oh, I think like right, like okay, so like right in the functional side of things, music with a purpose, super important. You need it, and ideally, it's something that fits. I could get into sort of like what something like Strofe lets you do that maybe just like stock music doesn't. But before that, the other side of like actually using music as like an expressive medium, I think is incredibly important. Like it's um, for me, it's been this kind of like foundation for my own life, you know, like a way to connect with myself and others in a really kind of like deep way. And I think it's unfortunate, you know, in that sense that we see a lot of people get pushed out of music, you know. Um, yeah. So there we go, cameo. See the little guy here.
We have a special guest.
That's right.
So
Destroying the couch.
you touched on this I mean, you touched on it a little bit, but I think you could dive a little deeper into it. Why do you choose Roblox of like all other programs out there?
Um, I think largely because the community's huge and the problem's big. You know, when we first kind of come across it, we tried out a bunch of different games and found that like a ton of them just literally don't have music, you know, or it's super sparse, and the platform was really hard to get music onto, and so on and so on and so on. And yeah, in that sense, it was like kind of a no brainer. You know, it's if you wanted to hit all like the people working with Unity or Unreal, like there's forums out there, but it's not like the same kind of like community that like the Roblox dev forum is. Um, but yeah, so that's
Do you do you
so.
hope that Strofe could expand off Roblox?
Oh, we have, yeah. So
Yeah.
at this point, like Roblox makes up about 10%, maybe a little less now, of the people using Strove.
Mhm.
Yeah, so we had a lot of people come through to Strove through Reddit. We'd put in some posts on like the game dev and indie dev Reddit subreddits, and then also like Twitch, and yeah, and like even today, like people are still finding those when they're like searching for music in the subreddits and finding us.
That's very cool. Do you hope that keeps expanding off?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, man. That's yeah. It's
Softball
a
question.
Silicon Valley dream, right? But no, I think like as we've gotten deeper with Struve, we've kind of realized how big kind of the problem is, like globally, you know. Um, and I have kind of identified like a unique way of approaching that. So like some of the ways we're looking at growing here is like um, on the well, how much should I talk? So basically, we just kind of like seen that like generative music can kind of like Strofe can do something that like stock music just never can or will, right? Like stock music is just like an MP3. It's not a MIDI file. It's not something you work with, and it's never going to change. But like because we're kind of composing everything from the ground up, we can, especially when you think about like different mediums as opposed to games, like things like Twitch or YouTube, we can sort of create a sort of musical experience that you can never get with stock music because it's like adaptable and changeable and all that good stuff.
Do you think that the audience of who uses Strofe changed at all?
Over the last year,
Mhm. Like, who was your
uh,
first target audience, and who do you think is using it primarily now?
oh yeah. So I mean, we started with Roblox, but it's still like largely game developers,
Mhm.
right? Um, yeah, like we have some Twitch streamers, some YouTubers who are kind of like really into it, but we realized they sort of want something a little different than game devs, and so we'd have to, yeah, kind of like I was saying, we'd have to like add some different ways to like adapt the music so that it like better fits a video. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, what role do you think AI created music's gonna play in the future? Do you think that's gonna be a lot bigger? More people are gonna turn to it. Less people are gonna be making music for humans. And it's just gonna be robots making music.
Human music. Um, yeah, man, Skynet's right around the corner. No, um, I think the best kind of thing for AI is for it to become kind of like a means for us to extend our own capabilities and not like a replacement for X, Y, or Z, right? Like it makes, so to provide a distinct example, there's like professional musicians who use Strofe. Um, like there's a guy in Brazil who makes music on Fiverr, and he comes to Strofe, picks up MIDI files, slams them into Logic Pro, and like kind of like works them through his own process. And it takes what would have taken 2 hours to do, and makes it like 10 minutes, right? So for people like him, it sort of drastically changes how quickly he can work. And for somebody who knows literally nothing about music, um, it means that the barrier to entry is like ground floor. You know what I mean? And it's not like, oh, I went to college, I studied at a conservatory for 4 years, I've been playing piano since I was 10. You know what I mean? Like it's not. It's sort of a very different thing. I think, yeah, that's what I see is kind of like the best use case for a lot of AI stuff. Like look at Dolly. I'm not sure if you've seen this Dolly 2 from OpenAI.
No, I've never heard it.
It's worth checking out. It's really neat. You just like type in literally anything you want to see, and it generates it. It all has to be kind of G-rated, but
Oh wait, I think I know what you're
well,
talking about, where it
yeah,
generates pictures.
that's
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
could say, I want to see a purple platypus driving a car
Yes.
through like traffic in Los Angeles on a snowy winter evening or something, and it'll make it.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and I guess the idea is like something like that is useless on its own, but it's really helpful when it comes to sort of helping people make their own stuff. Um, it's sort of, I would never be able to draw that in my wildest dreams, let alone in the style of anything that it can make. But yeah, so I don't know. I think that's something you can even see with Roblox, right? Like what did it used to take to make video games? Like you'd have to have
True.
like a CS degree and like be pretty like a pretty serious engineer. But more and more, the barrier to entry is sort of lower and lower.
I
You know,
think you could even compare it to just electronic music in the early beginnings, when it took like a whole entire room for one giant machine just to get 1 minute note.
yeah, man, that's that's the place I studied. Fun fact about the Center for Computer Research in Music and Acoustics is it is literally the place where electronic music was invented. Um, and they have some of those like super old, like cabinet sized synthesizers in the lobby and everything.
How did it make you feel? Bring you back to the old days?
I'm not that old, man. No, it's more just it gives a sense of reverence. It's like, wow, like this is really where it all happened.
Mhm.
Yeah.
definitely. And I think that like going to like the birthplaces of like Mozart, Beethoven would definitely make you wish that you could be in those days. Go see Beethoven perform live.
Yeah, and then and get the plague and
You know, it's just the minor side effect.
yeah, 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 yeah. No,
So
but that's the cool thing. You still have all that music, right?
yes, and it survived all these years. So do you think that there's like any major flaws with Strofe as is?
I mean, yeah, of course. Like it's as somebody who like is really into like theory and analysis and like using that as to dissect why Beethoven, Mozart, Bach, Chopin, any of these kind of like great Western classical composers, like what made them so great. Um, if I turn that same lens to like what we output, it's like obvious that I find flaws. I think one of the things, okay, I don't want to get too into the weeds here, but like I think with a melody, like any melody, even like pop music, right? I know people like to smack talk pop music is like bad music or whatever, but I think like a good pop melody is actually a really carefully constructed um, thing where like what makes it good, like phrasing, but also like repetition and contrast. And like if you look at, I don't know, what's a song? Give me any song, like a pop song.
I'm thinking of All I Want for Christmas because that has some like if you really look into it, it's like really a masterpiece within its own within like music
Yeah,
theory.
yeah, right. Like what is it? I I don't want a lot for Christmas. And so that like second bit is like a repetition of the second part of the first
Yes.
like phrase, right? And you can if you actually write it out, it's like a lot easier to explain this with like colors and highlighters on it.
Yeah,
But like
definitely
there's
the chords. The chords though.
right. Yeah, the harmony's a lot of fun, but like
Yeah.
it's yeah, there's just a lot of like kind of um repetition, like clever use of repetition to sort of solidify the catchiness of this thing. And you'll see that in like everything. And does Surf do that? Sometimes. Is it really good at it? No, like not yet. It's but that's I think if we were able to make something that could do that in a year, um, that would be ridiculously impressive. Like
Yeah, would they?
some of the biggest companies in the world have sort of put the smartest people they could find at the problem and still haven't gotten there, right? So,
Yes.
um, but I think like the idea is we have some idea of like kind of a roadmap on how to get from where we are now and to sort of continually filter out like that output until it gets better and better and better over the years. But I think the funny thing is I don't necessarily know that that's going to be the thing that really changes people's minds or makes them think that it's really great. I think like more the production piece of like what virtual instruments are we using, like how closely does it match the sort of mixing and mastering principles of like music that they're used to listening to, like that those pieces are maybe going to move the needle for people more. But sorry, I'm kind of rambling.
No, you're good. It's definitely you have to like cater to your audience. It's like most of them probably aren't looking for like high mode mixture pieces with all secondary dominants, augmented six chords. They just want something basic, a 1-4-5 progression just to get for like their YouTube video or something.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Or they just want it to sound like the lo-fi hip hop beats that they like or they've seen in other YouTube videos or what have you. The good news is like that's a lot easier to replicate than like Mozart or
Yes.
anybody else. But I think nonetheless, it's kind of like it gives us a nice kind of like mountain
Mhm,
of a journey, to try to climb.
mhm. Definitely. Until it gets better, humans 1, AI 0.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, I guess.
long term, where do you see Strofe?
Where do I see it going?
Yeah, like, what's your
Yeah.
hopes for it? Like, how
So
much
I
more
think
do you hope for it to grow?
um well, Yeah, I see the potential being very, very high, right? There's like 100 million content creators around the world, right? And not nearly enough. Like even if, say, as a musician, as a composer, you were willing to make a whole song, spend hours and hours and hours making a song for like $5, right? There's still, and every other composer was like, there wouldn't be enough to like sort of fit this massive amount of content flowing through. I forget the exact number. Hold on, I have it here somewhere. Where is this? Right, in like 30 seconds, 255 hours of video are uploaded to YouTube alone, right? Like every 30 seconds, 250 hours. So like this, there's no way, right? So in that sense, I see that the like kind of potential for growth here is like astronomical. Um, and yeah, but I think that's just the one half that I described, which is like music with a purpose. It is a background thing for something else that somebody needs, right? Um, and I think the good the good thing about that surprising kind of fact that like musicians are really into this is like that it could also be really helpful on the other side of things, just like actually connecting people who want to do music for music's sake. Like they're not trying to, maybe they're not even trying to publish it on like SoundCloud or Spotify or whatever. They're just trying to learn, you know. And as it stands, there's not a lot of ways to get like MIDI files or like full songs or what have you. Um, but yeah, so I guess like in that sense, we see that this could be like a company like on the scale of like, you know, the other sort of music giants like Spotify or Pandora, what have you.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if you're familiar with like APM and Epidemic Sound.
Mm-hmm.
Like, do you hope that the end goal is that Strofe can be like placed with them? Basically, like a go-to music library, only yours gives people the option to make their own.
Sorry, what was the question? That we like replace them?
No, 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 not replace them, but like be like them. Because I know a lot of people go to like APM music
Oh,
to
I see,
get
I
some
see.
music, Epidemic
Right.
Sound to get music. Do you hope that people start going to Strofe, but like
Yeah,
have that creative freedom of editing it?
absolutely. So like this is kind of what I was getting at with the like uniqueness of like generative music. Like if you go to Epidemic Sound, this is all like pre-produced music made by musicians who use Epidemic Sound as like a means to connect to you or anybody else, I guess. An Epidemic takes like a cut, you know, but at the end of the day, these are like MP3s, they're WAV files, they're like just sound files, and you need to say you're making a video and it's 1 minute and 37 seconds long, and like the credits start at 1 minute 30 seconds and the intro lasts for 10 seconds, and like I want it to kind of like do X, Y, and Z. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
you're gonna be hard pressed to find one music that kind of fits the feel, and two, like that fits the sort of pacing of your video. But like something like generative music, like what Strofe produces, could actually take in those inputs and give you something that sort of is through composed, like Mozart would compose for an opera, right? Like for every moment, like there's like each measure is sort of like meant to accompany some moment in time of this visual thing. So in that sense, like, yeah, of course, like I think not only do I hope that people come to us as an alternative to like these things, but I'm hoping that we can like be like an entirely different valuable thing for people that sort of does something that stock music can't.
yeah. So, final question before we open the Q&A. This one might be a little open-ended, but any advice to those out there wishing to make their own AI music-generated website?
Um, contact me because you know we're going to be hiring soon. So if you need to,
Oh, really?
no, it's
Uh,
oh, I mean, yes, we will be hiring like after we fundraise here, of course. But
mhm.
I think that's very, if anything, that's very specific. Like if I have lots of advice for people who want to make companies for AI music websites. Like that's
Well, how about I just start there? Any advice for
yeah,
those who want to start their own company?
yeah, yeah. Um, Don't do it. It's really hard. No, it's I think like okay, so um going to Stanford, you run into like every other person is thinking about starting a company or has started a company or will be starting a company, right? And there's a lot of hype. It's the heart of the Silicon Valley. It's where it all happens. There's a show all about it, right? And when I run into when I think about my own self 5 years ago, when I run into other people now who are thinking about starting a company, main advice is maybe like don't rush, like I worked at this place called StartX, which is like a startup accelerator, and a lot of people, it's like more like a nonprofit community of founders, but it helps accelerate people's businesses. And so we see tons and tons of people, like thousands of companies come through and try to apply. And it's everything from like a 19-year-old at Stanford or to like a 57-year-old professor or like somebody coming back. And like I think like take your time to learn and grow and make some money, work at a place like ideally work at a small startup, and build up a network and learn the ropes and make good friends. And like eventually you get to a point where you think you have either the team or the skills or what have you to kind of like go for it. And at that point, go for it. But like, I think, yeah, it's easy to feel like you're kind of like constantly missing out, but there's no shortage of a need for like new startups that are going to help us solve our problems, which is incidentally, I think the best way to look at startups is not just as like a kind of get rich quick kind of scheme, but more a means of actually affecting change in the world through like a company with a mission that does X, Y, or Z, right? Yeah. And if you're trying to start an AI music company and are not trying to join Strofe, like get yourself ready, because we're going to be doing it too.
So some competition out there.
Yeah, exactly, right? Good amount of competition is always healthy. Actually, though, it's very helpful.
All right, and at this time, I'm opening up the Q&A. So if you have any questions for Byron, put some good questions there.
The chat.
So we have 3 people.
Nice. Of course, your boy AB Creator.
Yeah, AB Creator does some stuff for you with Strofe, right?
Yeah, no, he's been around for a while.
He's your head moderator, right?
I don't know if we have head moderators there.
Or admin or something.
Yeah.
To tell you the truth, I see him on the dev forums. I see him on the dev forums all the time.
Yeah, stirring up a ruckus.
Yeah, and every time that Strofe post gets bummed up, it's either him replying to some within seconds.
Yeah. So guys, yeah.
He's a hard worker.
Yeah.
I know, we'll give this a minute, see if anybody has any good questions.
Do you have any other like off the cuff questions for me? Given like kind of what I've told you already.
Oh no, you're talking a little bit about the instruments that you played, like trombone, ukulele, voice. Like, you're saying that you fake it? Or were you just joking? Like, what's your experience level with it?
Oh, yeah. I mean, with piano, like, I was playing like Hungarian Rhapsody #2 by Liszt. You know what I mean? Like, it's for those who don't know, it's pretty hard.
Yes.
So, I like to think I achieved a certain level of like technical mastery with that. With trombone, like similarly, all state honor bands, like whole 9 yards, played in symphonies for a long, long time. I would say like in terms of most expertise to least is probably piano, trombone, voice, various stringed things. But what was funny with the guitar, like some of my guitar and ukulele students, is like I feel like the important thing for them was to sort of like help them find a way to enjoy learning it and some practice skills. Like I'm sure you've seen this, like learning how to practice well is a skill unto itself. But then after that, it's like there's almost no reason for me to be around. It's like you can learn all this stuff on your own. You can find all the chords. You can like get the technique down, and it's sort of up to you how much you want to do that. So a lot of my relationships with students has been something like that, where like I take them in at a point where they're really struggling. I help them kind of like get going on their own and find kind of their own self-sufficient skills, and then sort of release them like birds into the world. Kind
Why?
of yeah, exactly. Yeah, as real musicians.
Yes. And I think that's a good point that you made, though. Like, you can only teach them so much before you just have to release them. They just have to go learn the rest on their own, go see how far they want to go with it.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, don't get me wrong, having a regular relationship with a teacher helps with like practice discipline if you struggle with it, or especially for like piano and some of the more technical things. Like there's a big mountain there to climb.
Yeah.
And but yeah, at the end of the day, like I think the reason why I got better at piano is because I wanted to practice the technical stuff, not because like some teacher was like drilling it into me. They kind of lined up the things, which always helps. But yeah.
Is there any specific music genre you like to play?
Actually, I started classical, as you might imagine, but I started branching out to like jazz, and like I learned strings because like I wanted to sort of like be able to like play and sing. So that was kind of like I learned singing and like a lot of this string stuff at the same time. And yeah. So in that sense, like I've become a big fan of a lot of the like kind of more indie singer-songwriter types out there, where it sort of has that feel of like it's just one person and a dream.
Yes.
No, but it's a
Good
lot
way
of
to
fun.
put it.
Yeah. Aren't we all just a person with a dream?
Well, I don't know. If there's no more questions and no more that you have to say.
Good place to call it.
Yeah. I don't know. You want to
Sounds
add anything? Anything you want to put in?
Of course, go to strofe.com where you can make your own music in a second. Uh, yeah, no, I think no, just to really appreciate you like pulling this together. I think flattered that you reached out, and yeah, hope to see you in the Discord channel.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'll be in contact with you again. Maybe we could do something else.
Yeah, that'd be fun. Let me know.
All right. Well,
Cool.
thank you. Thank you for your time.
Of course. See ya.
All right. Take care.